The haunted school me name is Nathan. Crestwood High School, long believed to have been abandoned and known as the dwelling of dark legends and forgotten sorrows, had stood alone on the outskirts of town amidst swirling mists. Even the first time I heard its name, it evoked both fear and curiosity in every whispered tale. No one ever spoke of the tragic stories that were said to be murmured from behind its windows. Yet I burned with the desire to uncover the truth hidden behind that myth. As I approached the school, its broad rusted iron doors, cracked walls, and the cold light filtering through shattered glass immediately drew me in. Once a building filled with the echoes of bustling corridors, it now stood as a silent guardian of quiet despair and melancholy memories. With each careful step I took, the creaking of the old wooden floors seemed to whisper the painful recollections of the past into my ears. The moment I stepped inside, a sudden cold gust of wind hit my face, and I felt an unsettling stillness drift through the halls. As I moved along the corridors, the faded portraits hanging on the walls reminders of students and teachers, whose faces bore the marks of life and loss seemed to be silently trying to tell me the sorrowful history of the building. After a short while, I reached the old library. Dusty shelves, worn-out books, and the pale light seeping through broken windows revealed that this place had once been full of knowledge and life, but was now ensnared by abandonment and oblivion. Driven by deep curiosity, I began to rummage through the shelves until I discovered an old diary. Its pages were slightly yellowed and nearly illegible, yet within its lines lay clues to the tragic events that had once taken place in this very school. As I started reading the diary, I encountered words that echoed like the old whispers on the walls. This school is the rubble of our hopes and dreams. Darkness has seeped into every corner, and we have become trapped here with our lost souls. Those words awakened in me a profound sorrow and a shattering sense of fear. I felt as though the writer of the diary was one with the very spirit of the school. In that moment, I understood that the tragedy that had unfolded here years ago had not only scarred the physical structure, but had also left indelible marks on the hearts of those who once dwelled within. As I continued along the corridors, I noticed faded writings and symbols on the walls. In one corner, I found an old photograph with Evelyn scrawled in delicate handwriting. In the picture, a young, hopeful girl smiled, yet the sorrow in her eyes hinted at a dark story left behind. That name appeared several times in the diary. In that instant, I wondered if Evelyn might have been at the center of the school's tragedy, perhaps the most innocent victim of the events that transpired here. Days passed as I wandered through the halls of Crestwood High, occasionally startled by a sudden whisper, a door that creaked open slightly, or the distant sound of an old bell. Each sound evoked the lost cries of the past, drawing me deeper into that bygone era. At night, as I sat silently within the school, contemplating those moments, my heart grew heavy and my soul was gripped by a restless wakefulness. One evening, summoning all my courage, I decided to venture into the deepest, most forsaken part of the school. As I descended narrow, dark staircases, the echo of my footsteps felt as though I were being watched by 1,000 unseen eyes. Finally, I reached the old laboratory, a place bearing the remnants of past experiments and desperate searches. Here, broken glass test tubes, rusty instruments, and forgotten notebooks stood as mute witnesses. On the walls, alongside scientific scribbles, there were eerie inscriptions about death and immortality. These notes seemed to symbolize the dark forces behind the school's tragedy and the inescapable grip of mortality. In the far corner of the laboratory, I discovered an old table half buried in the dust. On it lay a letter, written with trembling hands. We left our hopes and dreams here. This school is not just a building. It is the eternal shrine of our sorrows, our losses, and our silent cries. Every night, our walls whisper, "Listen to our forgotten souls." As I read the letter, It felt as if the cumulative pain of the past descended upon me all at once. Evelyn's name appeared in the letter, and in that moment, I realized that this school had not been built to make us forget its tragedy, but rather to remind us of the wounds that remain hidden in our hearts. My emotions mingled into a complex blend of fear, curiosity, and profound sorrow. Before leaving, I turned back for one final look. In the empty classrooms, among the dusty traces on the blackboard, between old notebooks and broken chairs, I could hear the echoes of what had once been a testament to lost innocence and painful farewells. Crestwood High was no longer just the forgotten tunnel. My name is Sebastian. When I first set foot in the town of Knoxford, I felt that there was a secret hidden deep beneath its surface, something far more profound than what met the eye. As I wandered through the town's narrow, cobblestone streets, the ancient engravings carved into the walls seemed to whisper the sorrowful history of these lands. Yet, what captivated me most was the legend of the Forgotten Tunnel, a tale that spoke of a mysterious passage hidden beneath the town. Centuries ago, Knoxford had thrived on a prosperous mining operation. However, deep within the mine lay a labyrinthine tunnel where miners had mysteriously vanished, never to return. The locals called this passage the Forgotten Tunnel, believing it to echo the lost souls, unspoken sorrows, and forsaken hopes of those who disappeared within its depths. One night, driven by an insatiable curiosity and an irresistible pull toward the unknown, I found myself drawn to this tunnel. As the moon cast its pale light through dark, rolling clouds, I paused before an abandoned miner's hut. The weathered walls of the hut seemed to carry the hopes and heartaches of those who had once toiled within its confines. Stepping inside, the dusty floor and rusted iron doors reminded me of the relentless march of time. In the darkest corner of the hut, I discovered an almost forgotten stone lid embedded in the floor. This lid concealed the secret entrance to the tunnel. With trembling hands, I pried it open and began my descent along a narrow stone staircase. With every step downward, the cold, damp air of the underground wrapped around me, as if whispering long-forgotten tales from the past. My weak flashlight could only outline the silhouette of the path a few meters ahead. At the end of the stairs, my eyes were drawn to ancient symbols and carvings etched into the walls. These marks bore witness to the tragic events and desperate struggles of the miners, who seemed to have carved their very lives into the stone. For a long while, silence reigned. Only the sound of my own breathing and the pounding of my heart filled the space. But as I ventured further, I began to hear soft whispers emanating from the tunnel's depths. Initially, I mistook these sounds for the wind's murmur, yet they soon revealed themselves as the sorrowful laments of thousands of lost souls. Reaching the widest part of the tunnel, I noticed a worn board hanging on one of the walls. Scrawled in the handwriting of an old miner was a brief note. "My name is Jonathan. Here lie the traces of our lost hopes and the sorrows that vanished into darkness. The Forgotten Tunnel holds not only our bodies, but also the cries of our souls." The words on that note carried the weight of centuries. In that moment, with each step I took, I could feel the pain and hope of countless lives lost in the depths of the mine. The engravings on the walls told the tragic stories of people who once brimmed with life, but were ultimately swallowed by misfortune. Every mark served as a stark reminder of how fragile and transient life truly is, and how the imprints of the past remain here, as if deliberately left to be remembered. As I delved deeper, the atmosphere of the tunnel grew increasingly oppressive and suffocating. The cold air merged with the echoing whispers off the stone walls, as if every rock harbored an ancient secret. For a moment, I felt lost in the interplay of my own fear and curiosity amid the tunnel's silence. The voices seemed to murmur, "Do not forget us." It was a call both eerie and mesmerizing. Finally, at the end of a narrow corridor, I encountered a small iron door. The cold, ominous silence that emanated from behind it conveyed the sense that unresolved destinies and Forgotten lives were hidden beyond. In that critical moment, when fear and curiosity intertwined, mustered the last of my courage and pushed the door open as it swung ajar. I stepped into a vast chamber, reminiscent of the ruins of the old mine. This room held every trace of the past. It was a silent witness to forsaken hopes and lost dreams. When I emerged from the tunnel, the time I had spent within its depths felt as if it belonged to a shadowed dream. The quiet of Knoxford's night still echoed in my ears, yet I left with a newfound understanding and a profound, inward sorrow. But the experience did not end there. In the days that followed, the memories of that night clung to me like a persistent fog. I found myself haunted by visions of ghostly miners and the echoing lament of their voices. Their silent stories urged me to return, to delve even deeper into the enigma that had so thoroughly consumed my thoughts. Driven by this lingering call, I returned to the tunnel several times. Each visit revealed new mysteries, subtle changes in the carvings on the walls, faint traces of footsteps where none should be, and, most startling of all, the soft glimmer of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm. Whispers in the town cemetery. My name is Victor. The old cemetery of Ebonvale had been a whispered legend in my mind since childhood. The townspeople believed that the silent, murmuring sounds emanating from the cemetery at night were the cries of the dead. These rumors were both chilling and sorrowful, echoing the painful stories of the past. One night, I realized that my curiosity and unresolved questions had drawn me to this mysterious place. As the moon spread its pale light across the sky, a thin mist enveloped the cemetery. Despite the fear stirring within me, a longing for the unknown compelled me to step closer into the graveyard. With every footstep, I felt as though the faded carvings and worn inscriptions on the ancient stones were whispering long-forgotten stories to me. When I reached the gate of the cemetery, amid the howling wind and the rustle of the trees, it seemed as if forgotten voices from ages past were calling out, "Do not forget us." These words awakened in me a deep sorrow and an indescribable curiosity. Though I wanted to retreat, my soul could not resist that enigmatic summons. Slowly, I approached an ancient tombstone. On it, a date and a name were inscribed in letters, weathered by time. Yet what truly caught my eye was a diary-like remnant lying half-finished on the ground beside it. In that moment, this relic harboring the final words of the departed and the memories lost in the dusty pages of me. As I gently turned its pages with trembling fingertips, I saw traces of sorrow, loss, and forgotten hope in every line. On one page, carefully penned sentences read, "Every tear is a reflection of a forgotten love and a lost hope. Here, we have become lost in silence. Our whispers echo so that you may never forget the deep wounds of the past." Those words resonated within me. It was as if a silent cry from the depths of the cemetery reminded me of life's fragility, and how the remnants of the past still dwell on this land. In my heart, I felt the quiet murmurs of the dead. Driven by an inexplicable impulse, I ventured deeper into the heart of the cemetery. The narrow winding paths led me to an ancient mausoleum, its heavy stone walls adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to tell stories of love, loss, and legacy. As I traced my fingers along the cold surface, I felt a connection to the souls who once found solace within these walls, a connection that was both haunting and profoundly moving. Inside the mausoleum, the atmosphere grew even more oppressive. Faded murals and broken sculptures hinted at rituals long abandoned, their silent narratives merging with the ambient sound of the rustling leaves outside. I paused for a long moment, allowing the weight of centuries to seep into my bones. Every detail, the chipped marble, the delicate tracery of ironwork, spoke of a past steeped in both reverence and despair. As the night deepened, a gentle, sorrowful melody began to weave itself through the cold air, a melody that seemed to arise from the very earth beneath my feet. The tune was delicate, yet carried the full burden of lost years and unspoken regrets. I closed my eyes and let the music envelop me, each note stirring memories I had never lived but somehow understood. In that timeless moment, I sensed that the cemetery was not merely a repository of the dead, but a living archive of human emotion, where every sigh of the wind echoed the laughter, the tears, and the dreams of those who had passed, wandering back along the winding paths. I noticed that the inscriptions on the tombstones had become clearer, as if illuminated by the ethereal glow of the moon. Names, dates, and epitaphs that once faded into obscurity now shone with a poignant clarity, each one a silent testament to lives that had once burned brightly. I felt compelled to honor these stories, to remember that even in death, each soul had a tale that deserved to be told. As dawn approached, the mist began to lift, revealing the cemetery in a new light. I stepped out of that hallowed ground with a heavy yet enlightened heart. The experience had imprinted on me a profound truth. The past, with all its sorrow and beauty, remains ever present. The cemetery was more than a final resting place. It was a mirror reflecting the delicate balance between loss and hope, a reminder that every ending births the seeds of new beginnings. Even as I left, the soft echo of that haunting melody lingered, in my ears a promise that the whispers of the past would forever guide those willing to listen. I walked away with a deep awareness of life's transient nature, carrying the legacy of those forgotten voices and a quiet determination to remember, always. The Forest of Shadows. My name is Alexander. On the outskirts of Ravenford, there lay a forest so foreboding that people trembled to set foot within an atta forest that seemed like a living entity, carrying the forgotten whispers of the past. The townspeople believed that venturing beyond this forest was cursed, and every night they recounted old tales that dissolved into the howling wind. I, however, was consumed by a burning desire to uncover the truth behind those mysterious whispers. One autumn evening, as the fog thickened and the pale light of the moon danced with the shadows, I could no longer contain my curiosity and took the path into the forest. My footsteps echoed on the damp earth, and the thin mist weaving through the trees seemed to murmur the lost voices of bygone days. Every tree, every leaf appeared to bear the traces of ancient sorrow. My journey led me onto a long-forgotten trail, a path that seemed to hold the imprints of souls who had once wandered it and then vanished. After a while, emerging from the fog before me was the silhouette of what resembled the ruins of an abandoned village. Crumbling stone houses, now condemned to silence, stood like relics bearing the painful memories of the past. In the center of the village lay a forgotten square with a weathered cross. According to local legend, this village had once been populated by people who struggled against nature's wrath. However, when ancient rituals spiraled out of control, dark forces from the depths of the forest eradicated all hope. When I reached the village gates, an indescribable melancholy overwhelmed me. The walls, worn by years of neglect, seemed to silently whisper the sorrows of long ago. Standing before an old house, watching the faint light leak through shattered windows, I heard a gentle melody. It was as if the forgotten tunes of a music box were playing, a delicate yet profoundly sorrowful tune, drawn by an ethereal invitation. I searched for the source of the sound and found myself compelled to enter the house. Inside, every corner of the home revealed traces of dusty memories and forgotten recollections. On a table, a faded letter caught my eye. As I took it in my hand, the trembling letters seemed to echo the tragedies of the past. We sacrificed to appease the wrath of nature, yet fury never falls silent. These forgotten lands stand as silent witnesses to our sorrows and losses. Every tear shed, every hope that fades away, reverberates in the shadow of this forest. Those words ignited my curiosity even further, reminding me of the village's curse and the dark face of the forest. With each step I took, The mysterious whispers rising from the depths of the forest made me feel the weight of untold stories. When I closed my eyes, I could almost hear distant, sorrowful screams and the weeping of lost souls. As I wandered among the ruins, I noticed ancient inscriptions and symbols etched into the walls. These markings bore witness to the archaic rituals once performed by the villagers in their quest to become one with Natura, pursuit that ultimately led to calamity. Legend has it that, as the villagers tried to understand the balance and fury of nature, they paid a heavy price, and the curse took deep root within the forest. In the silence of the forest, as I felt as though I were lost within the depths of my own soul, I experienced an inner reckoning with loneliness and despair. Every step reminded me of how fragile life truly is, of the lingering pains of the past and the uncertainty of the future. This abandoned village was more than just a place. It was a silent chronicle of lost hopes, forgotten loves, and deep-seated sorrows. As time passed and I departed from the village, I carried with me the imprints of those ancient stone structures, the sorrowful stories, and the echoes of forgotten whispers deep within my heart. The forest of shadows had revealed to me both the beauty and the pain of life, the indelible marks of the past and the uncertain hopes for the future. That night, as I emerged from the forest, I bore within me both an indescribable melancholy and a hidden glimmer of hope amid the darkness. The cursed clock tower me name is Edward. When I first arrived in the town of Windermere, I was unaware of the dark secrets hidden behind its calm facade. As I wandered through the narrow streets and among the ancient stone buildings, an inexplicable sense of unease settled within me. With every step, I felt as though I could hear the echoes of the past and the whispered tales left untold. In the very center of the town stood an old clock tower, defiant against the ravages of time. With its Gothic architecture and moss roof, the tower seemed to herald a curse. Both mesmerizing and eerie, this structure was known by the townspeople simply as the Cursed Clock Tower. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the toll of its bells would envelop the town in a profound silence, as if reminding everyone of the dark secrets of the past. One evening, driven by an insatiable curiosity, I decided to approach that accursed tower. Despite the fear that churned inside me, the desire to uncover the mystery behind this enigmatic edifice propelled me forward. Under the pale light of the moon, I advanced step by step toward the tower. I recalled the warning of an elderly local who had once said, "Edward, do not go near that tower. Unspeakable sorrows lie within." Yet, unwilling to be satisfied with mere rumors, I sought the truth for myself. I pushed open the heavy door of the tower and stepped inside. The interior was dark, cold, and blanketed in the dust of many years. The echo of my footsteps vanished into the long corridors, and with each step, my heart pounded ever harder. The faded portraits hanging on the walls, remnants of those who once lived in this town, seemed to gaze into the emptiness, each face bearing the scars of a tragedy, a loss. As I ventured deeper, an old book caught my eye on the stairway leading to the bell chamber. Flipping through its dusty pages, I recalled the story of the tower's construction and the master architect, William. According to local lore, William had made a pact during the building of the tower, sealing a dark part of his soul within it in exchange for immortality. The curse of that bargain was said to return with every toll of the bell, determining the fate of the living. When I finally reached the deepest part of the tower, I opened the door to the enormous bell chamber. At that moment, a chill swept through my entire body as if the weight of centuries began to press upon my shoulders. In the center of the room, on an old wooden table, lay an unfinished letter. The moment I picked it up, an indescribable melancholy and apprehension welled within me. I carefully read the faded words on the paper. "O child of time, if you are reading these lines, know that curses are never forgotten. I, William, have sacrificed a part of my soul to this tower. Now every toll of the bell symbolizes a heart's agony, a life lost. The passage of time will be paid for, with the price of immortality. Those words ignited my curiosity even further. It became clear to me then that the tower was not merely a building, it was a symbol of the town's history, its sorrows, and its losses. I began to ponder the fragility of my own life, the dark imprints of the past, and the inevitability of death. As the sound of the bells grew nearer, I slowly started to withdraw. Yet it felt as though the mysterious power of the tower would not let me go. Gazing up at the ceiling of the bell chamber, I could almost hear the reverberating pains with every toll. At that moment, a soft melody, as if whispered from beyond time, filled the space. It spoke not only of the tower's sorrow, but of the collective grief of the entire town. I listened in silence for a long while. Each bell strike underscored how fragile life truly is, a stark reminder of my mortality. That night, as I stepped out of the cursed clock tower and merged with the quiet streets of Windermere, I found a new meaning in the silence. Perhaps the curse was not meant to erase the mistakes of the past, but rather to remind us of the pain we have endured. In that moment, I experienced an awakening, a profound realization. I saw in myself the traces of similar sorrows, losses, and errors. And maybe the tower intended to remind us all. Every toll of the bell is a reflection of the past, and every moment of our lives is precious. Now, as I leave that cursed clock tower behind and blend back into the town's streets, I carry both a sorrow and a glimmer of hope within me. Perhaps the pains of the past illuminate the path to the future. Perhaps every loss heralds the promise of a new beginning. My story is but one fragment of what transpired within those walls. Yet, that night, I felt the weight of the curse, the whisper of history, and the true value of life deep within my soul.